Welcome to Getting Back Up, where grief meets growth.
Two men, two fathers, and one shared journey of rebuilding.
We're talking about life after cancer, love, loss, and everything no one tells you.
How you doing? This is Jamal Jones.
And I'm David McLean.
And this is Getting Back Up, Finding Life After Death. And we are back. Doing a part 2. We had a really good episode prior to this where we really started this conversation around the loop of regret.
Yes.
Heavy, really good.
Dark. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, everybody goes through this. We all, particularly men, we carry a lot on our shoulders. And you know, there's a lot of time. We spend a lot of time thinking back to what are the mistakes I made. So, you know, we had a really good episode. So Dave, what were the first 4 that we talked about?
Yeah. And we just don't want men to get stuck in, these were the first 4 of about 7 or 8 we have that we kind of arrived. The first being why regret after loss feels so convincing. And then second was that regret loop and how it traps men. Third, we had this sense of when responsibility disguises itself as virtue. And then last, on the prior part 1 episode in this regret loop, we'd mentioned this idea, faith adjacent truth. Forgiveness must include the self. So now we're kind of going into this other theme, Jamal, that we want to discuss, love.
Yeah. And I think this one is an interesting one, right? Because I think it revisits a little bit. Yes, the previous 4 have different kind of approaches to different kind of narratives, but like this one, like people fall into this one a lot, which is, you know, the idea that love requires you to punish yourself forever, right? To prove that you love this person from your past, it requires you to show this deep longing and commitment to this person, and sometimes like that doesn't necessarily mean, you know, it doesn't present itself the way that people think, right? And I think, you know, the reality is love does not require you to be in a lifelong punishment, right? Yeah. And I think that's something that you have to kind of accept. You can miss your late partner. Like you can clearly miss their love, their relationship, but there's a healthy way to do it and an unhealthy way to do it. And, you know, I think I've seen it. You know, I think a lot of people believe that, you know, you have to suffer in order to prove that you love this person.
Yeah. What's interesting, Jamal, is this is a thing that's come up before in a prior episode for us.
Yeah.
Speaking to some of the men in our lives, and then also some of the men who have commented to us, they talk about, oh, I'll never get married. Oh, I'll never remarried. I'll never be in a relationship with somebody else. Well, muting love is also a way of damaging yourself and moving forward for yourself and others. You still have a lot of love to give. When Whitney Allen, the grief coach, talked about that, this idea, nonsensical idea of you stop at that. When the husband dies, you can't move on and start fresh your life again, as if she mentioned it as it related to the children, Jamal, about it's the same thing as I can still have another child. What I mean, right. I'm not allowed to do that. I'm moving on with my love and the legacy. So
yeah,
she jumped right.
And a lot of it, I mean, some of it is, I think some of it is for sure self-driven, right? Some of it is certainly we as kind of those left behind experiencing this. Some of it is our, you know, like us ourselves saying like, is it right for me to, you know, move forward? Is it right for me to not beat myself up? Is it right for me to the fact that I loved this person means that I can't love again, or I can't, or what I do, whether I decide to move forward or not. Like if I'm enjoying life,
Yes.
it means that I'm not honoring this person from the past.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that, I think it presents itself in different ways. Like some people have, after they lose a spouse or lose a partner, or they just, I'm going to go and travel. I just want to get away and go and visit another country or lay on a beach someplace. And people are like, I can't believe their wife just passed away and he's out, what are you talking about? He's in Puerto Rico or
I'm drinking a Mai Tai in the Bahamas.
I saw him at a restaurant there. He's laughing with his friends as if nothing happened. Right. Like there's a part of it where it's externally influenced, but then equally internally influenced. And you will catch yourself in those moments. Like you will catch yourself watching TV and, or watching a comedian and cracking up laughing and then looking around like, oh my gosh, I'm laughing. Oh, this is not, this is not right. I shouldn't be this happy.
Yeah.
Right.
But Jamal, let me ask you, in those moments, was it a different laughter given what you've gone through, or was it the same laughter when that person was still in your life and things were rosy?
Yeah. I mean, I think initially it's going to be different. I think it's going to be different initially. Like your joy is going to be different, initially. Love and feeling love is going to feel different, initially. And, those moments that don't necessarily present as, deep sadness are going to feel awkward, right? It's one, because you used to experience these emotions or some semblance of them with another partner, right? And now you're experiencing them in many cases without that partner or without that family member, without that loved one. And it's going to feel different, right? It's like watching a movie and watching a show with just you and the kids, or by yourself, or with a friend or whoever. Like it's going to be completely different than it was before. Right. And I think that element of like, oh, because I loved this person, I can't allow myself to feel any semblance of joy. And I have to hold on to, this deep pain, or show this deep pain in order to prove to myself and anybody else for that matter that, I truly cared about this person. There's a part of that is extremely natural to think and feel like you have to do. But then there's another part of it that it becomes unhealthy, right? And you have to kind of find a way out of it and allow yourself, to forgive yourself, to go back to the previous theme, right? To allow yourself to turn that page and understand that you don't have to prove to anybody that you loved this person.
That the suffering prove love.
That, yeah, you don't have to prove to anybody you don't have to suffer through this. Right?
Yeah.
You've already suffered, right? The loss in itself is the suffering. Like you don't have to, continue to keep yourself in that place. And I think the belief, like that belief in many cases traps men in particular, because men, I think a lot of men, we already struggle just in society. It's this element of, we struggle with the perception of faithfulness and the perception of like, what is it, for a man to prove his love to somebody or prove his love to a partner. Right. And I think there's an element of that presents itself, in the next, when you do go through, the period of life where you've lost, like, there's an element where you're like, oh, I'm going to continue to prove how faithful I was, like, how much I love this person, right? And it's understandable that's there, but I mean, I don't think it's necessarily fair for you to put that on yourself.
Not to prolong it. Don't prolong the suffering, and in fact, maybe even reframe, as we're talking about that.
Yeah,
it doesn't demand this endless suffering, and as you said, we're also looking for external authentication or approval at times, and that's not living your life, looking for external approval or some kind of check off for them of, okay, now your time, you don't have to suffer anymore.
Right.
3 years is good. Whoever decrees it, go out and be joyful. It doesn't work like that. So,
Yeah, you get it's like a reverse intervention, right? Like a family comes. They're not with the drugs. There's a ceremony. Is a you shall be free. Right. Like
your suffering is done. Go out and be joyful. And everybody packs them and come on.
Yeah.
That's
They hug you as they leave. And
you did a great job.
Go be free now.
We're faithful to the suffering.
I mean, to be honest, I think it would be so much easier for everybody, for men in particular, if that ceremony happened, right? It was, you get a good part of it. Right. You get a grief trophy.
A shirt, maybe a number on it, with your name on the back.
Like, you get the balloons. You did it, right?
Come on, man. So, look, love really only asks for a couple of things, man. It's the sense of remembrance. It's always going to be there.
That's it.
And just that integrity that you're kind of pouring into this process, and living forward well. That's where we all need to get kind of with.
That's it. When you boil it down and make it and you simplify it, right? Like you don't need to prove, you don't need to like suffer, right? Like you don't need to suffer. You don't even need the ceremony, right? Yeah. To prove that you loved her, right? Like, I mean, obviously you can, I think in the initial days, like you're already proving it. Like you're standing up, you're putting so much together to honor this person. You're doing so much to hold your family together in the theme of honoring this person. And you continue to do that even over the years. But there's a point, right, where at some point, like you do have to step back and allow yourself the grace, right? That I don't want to call it the performative, acting, a grief, but there's a part where you do have to fall out of it. Like you do have to get yourself out of it in order to get to the healthy side of it. And I think you talked like the integrity piece is important because I think that's the most important point to me, right? Like one of the most important things that I could always do personally is allow my kids in particular and my family to make sure that their mom is still present in their lives. And I do it with integrity in all capacities, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's it. Like you do it with integrity. You do it in a positive way so that you can respectfully continue to carry this person's legacy in a healthy way forward. It doesn't have to be something that you suffer through.
And Jamal, and as we've talked about in previous episodes, this integrity also carries into your now wife and how you don't have that comparison and speak from that perspective. And so it's also integrity in how you're moving forward with your now wife, knowing the lessons from that experience. Yes, the marriage was difficult anyway, and the cancer only exacerbated the challenge.
Yeah.
But then it's what's the framework now for the life I'm living well going forward now too?
Right. And even, I mean, I think about your scenario, your situation, like a lot where you did have, a healthy marriage with your wife. Again, no marriage is void of challenges, but you had
exactly. And we had them for sure.
But I think the reality is like you still have to bring that. Like you still yourself are finding and navigating that, have navigated that in your own effort to figure out how do you honor this this person from the past, ensure that their presence and their lessons and their aura, so to speak, is in your daughters, with your daughters in their lives.
Exactly.
But then also, as you consider and think about what does happiness look like for you personally, like how do you take that? Like how do you take that in a manner that's healthy, where you don't, force yourself to be in this continuous mode of suffering, right? And I think that's something that's important. And that gets into I think that gets into the next theme. Like it has to be practical and grounded ways in order to interrupt the regret process or the regret element of grief, right?
Yep.
And I think these are tools, they're not fixes, right?
Yeah.
Like there's things that you can actively do to make sure that as you go through that process, as you go through this experience, like you're presenting, it's always like, they always say like, men, we struggle with like feelings, right? Like, what is the feeling? Like, I'm mad about this. Well, why are you mad? What's the thing that's creating the anger, right? I think you have to name the regret, right? That's one piece of it, is like, you actually have to name, oh, this thing that I'm doing is regret. Like immediately you do that, like, oh, okay, I know why I'm doing it. Like at that point, it loses its power and its right. Being able to kind of look at, this thing, this weight you're putting on yourself, this element of shame in many cases, right? That you are, that's being created in a particular moment or by lack of something you're not doing, or so like I think by, naming it and being able to kind of put a name to it, it's like, calling it the boogeyman that it really is. Yeah. Right? And then you realize, oh, okay, there's nothing in the closet. That's just this thing that I'm creating,
Yeah. And you just can't hold your breath underwater this whole time.
Yeah.
You're good, or you'll drown.
Yeah.
And therefore, as you said, that saying aloud what that regret is, then that doesn't sabotage your future with the person you're with or yourself, really, first.
Right.
Because you'll repeat that cycle if you're not doing things differently and addressing it that way. Yeah. And maybe for some people, and I think you were about to say this, is for some it's maybe either in your head or on paper, writing what that kind of unsaid letter that's never going to be mailed to anybody, but to yourself, to kind of complete what that emotion is. Don't be afraid of it. So whether it's here, whether it's written on whatever piece of paper, so that's to yourself, so that you know. So
yeah, I mean, one thing that I used to do, and when I had time, I used to love to write. But I know when I was going through my initial grief process and loss, like I would struggle with what I was actually feeling. Mm-hmm. And it kind of bridged between anger and sadness and regret, right? Obviously. But there were times where like I would sit down and I'd be in my car or someplace and I'd just pull out my phone and like pull up like one of my notes files, whatever. And I just like start writing or typing rather. And sometimes it was just like like a bunch of words in thoughts. And I would go back and look at it and you realize like, wow, like there was some deep feelings here. Like there was deep feelings, some deep struggles but in that moment, it was like, what other way are you going to release this? Right. Like what other way do you have to release it? So I think writing for sure is something that, you could do, because then once helps you name it, like it helps you name it, like whatever this regret is, but then also it helps you to also document the unsettling feelings that are tied to the regret. Right. And some days, like you don't know, I know for men, a lot of times we don't know the words. Right. And it's much easier to pick up a piece of paper and in your own silo, write about something without judgment, right?
Mhm.
And you can always go back and revisit it later, and you may look at it like, oh my gosh, what space was I in? What was I thinking? But then you see like the range of rage, the range of sadness, the range of feelings and emotions that are tied to this experience. Like it goes back to what we talked about in the previous episode, how complicated and confusing it is.
Yeah.
Right. Like I could go back now and read like poems or things that I wrote, and I'm like, what was that? What did I say? Run into a brick wall and smash? Like what? Like, like I could go back and do that now and be like, oh man, like, oh yeah, I think I recall like where I was at that point.
Right.
And then that helps you feel like, okay, man, I'm advancing through this process.
Yeah.
Because now it gives you not just what am I naming? It gives you kind of a way to kind of look back and you feel like this release over time. So
Yeah. The idea also in the naming of what that regret is out loud, putting a label on what that regret is, writing down, and you did much more, Jamal, than just scribble in a pad or a notebook. I mean, you've got volumes on this already. I mean, you actually have literal, because you wrote the book for yourself. That, and then that's maybe something will come to the surface at
I literally wrote, my manual, so to speak, right? 400 some odd pages of everything that I was feeling.
Right.
Right. Right or, good, bad, or indifferent. Right.
Yeah.
Like everything that I was feeling and going through. And that was part of the process to allow me to label things and allow to kind of identify where I was in certain spaces and why I was in the space that I was at while I was writing. Like being able to do that is important. So,
yeah. And just, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the next one too is like, again, something we teased up a little bit was like separating what you can control versus the things you can't control.
Yeah.
Like most widowers, like we over-own everything. Everything was on us. It was me to carry this. I should have been, like you feel like that. You like it, by default, many things now do fall on you, right? Yeah. Because if you were, as you were a peer, there were a pair of people, two people who were doing all these things. And if there were children in the situation as there were like with you and I, like it's even doing more things, but you over-own so much. You get in a habit of saying, oh, this is on me. These things were on me, when no, like a lion's share of it probably wasn't on you. Like the lion's share of it was things that was between you, your like wife or husband, the doctors, the nurses, the family members, the village, right? Like it was, all hands on deck, right, to get everybody through that. Journey. And now, yes, some things are on you, but not everything.
Yeah. Jamal, it kind of brings us to the question you and I probably think about, and a lot of people listening as a widow and widowers, this idea of if he or she could see me now, that to see would she think or want me to be stuck here or living? And I know you and I think about all the time because we are going through more milestones. We'll talk about later in another episode. Our daughters went through Sweet 16 this week, man. And
ironically, right?
Yeah. And just the idea of this stuck or living is, am I living up to the legacy we had set out for our children and our family, about our children being well-rounded, whatever happens to them? And does that, either being stuck or living, also include moving forward in love and accepting joy and letting that in? In a prior episode, we talk about that valve of opening that up, whereas often going through this process of loss, we have completely tightened and shut down that valve, right, and opening up more and more. So it's, how am I doing if she were here? How am I doing? Or he, whatever. So
Yeah. I think there's a part, like, so many of us think about it, like, you married somebody because you believe at that time that you chose to marry them, that they actually made you better. And yeah, they brought the best into your life.
Right.
But you also did that knowing that that person wants you to be happy.
yeah,
Right.
yes, yeah,
And that happiness at some point in time in a marriage, and like, somebody is going to die. Right. That's the reality.
Yeah.
And none of us get married saying, when I die, I want this person to be miserable. Right. We may make our spouses miserable while we're married to them. But most of us, like, we don't get married with the goal, like, if I die, I want her to be miserable. Right. Like, well, like, I want him to suffer. Right. Like, you may go through the marriage and then want them to suffer because of shit you did to them. Like, in and of itself, like, you don't, right?
no,
So, like, I always, even through what I went through the challenge in marriage that I went through, that we had, I know she wanted me to be happy because she told me she wanted me to find happiness and be happy.
that's right.
I also know it because I wanted it for her. Like, at the points when we were even having conversations about, like, separating and getting divorced, it wasn't because it was part because, yes, we were struggling, but it was also part because, like, hey, I think you might be happier if we're not in this together. So, like, by default, you're already thinking of the best of this person. And that was my experience. I don't think in most experiences, like, when we think about, like, that element of people and that regret and that proving out your love and all of that, like, I think there's a part, like, again, to go back to, like, the ways you interrupt it, like, they don't want you to be stuck there. They want you to be happy, right? Their family wants you to be happy. Everybody may have a different opinion of what that looks like, but fundamentally, or what they believe that looks like, but fundamentally, like, you know, our late spouses want us to be happy. And I think back to your point of, like, would they be proud of you? You're still doing the best you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
sorry.
yeah, I was gonna say, I have, you know, 4 kids. On any given day, one of them could be annoyed at me because, you know, they thought dad's opinion didn't matter today, right? Or shouldn't matter today, right? And that's fine. Like, you could think my opinion, but, like, at some point in time, somebody's gonna be annoyed at me. Is one of my kids, you know, they're gonna be annoyed at me for something. I'm dad, right? We're parents, you know, like,
You're human.
I'm human, right? But I also do, like, I wonder if Janice would be happy with, like,
Sure.
how I'm parenting and how I'm loving my kids and whatever. And then I have to also say, like, you know what? I'm doing the best I can.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And guess what? There were times that, you know, our late wives probably weren't happy with how we parented when they were here. Equally, there could be times that they're going to be. So, like, I'll do the best I can. Right. Yeah. But I know that fundamentally, like, they don't want, you know, like, think about, like, this person didn't want you to be unhappy.
Yeah.
They didn't want you to be stuck in this pain and this regret and then this sadness.
Yeah. And because if we do, it affects our children and how they approach their relationships as they go out into the world. And we don't
their own losses.
Right. And we don't want that regret loop to continue. It becomes almost a family tradition to a great extent. So we have to think about those who are watching us and, this is normal, because they don't know anything else. So it's so important that movement forward, that process, the tools of this that we talked about are revealing themselves. So they say, they don't know it. They may not say it aloud, but then they approach their own relationships. They have something healthy from which to work, a foundation from which to work. Because as we talk about all the time, Jamal, that original programming, man, in the homes that we came up in and the ones that we have ourselves. And therefore we want to give them everything they need to take in happiness, to have healthy relationships. When there is strife or disagreement, how do you resolve that? Because y'all want to be together. That's what we want to say to our children. You know, we stood up with these vows the best you can. People divorce, sure. But let's not get into a marriage because we know we can divorce. That's not what we're trying to do. Go ahead. Man.
Right. I mean, no, I think you're the point of it is like being able to understand that one, you have to name it and identify the regret for what it is.
Yep.
Right. And then being able to understand why it's there. And then sometimes understand what it's doing to you. Yeah. Like you have to understand where the regret is placing you and what it's doing to you and what it's making. Right.
Yeah.
Like, I always like, for me, and I thought about this often, is this loss will not break me.
Yeah.
Right. This loss will refine me. Right. And make me a better person. And not just, taking all of the good things that I got from my experience, all of the lessons that I had from this experience, going back to, like it was deep sadness, deep pain, deep periods of regret. Yeah. Being able to come through that and also sit down and think about what this is so that I can understand the difference between what is regret and how I move forward. And it required me to take through and think about it and find these moments of clarity.
Yeah.
Right. So that, because the more I got stuck in the silence is the more I beat myself down. And you have to understand regret softens and it fades away when it intersects with clarity. Right. Mm-hmm. When you find that intersection between clarity and replace the silence with the clarity, you will find your way further from the regret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So let's hit the next theme, man. The next theme is you are not broken.
Yeah.
Right. I'll let you touch on this one, man. I think this is
I think similar to how we as men define ourselves by our jobs, as we define ourselves by this show of strength and not emotional, not responding with tears and stuff, which stop it.
My wife, I still get, you don't cry enough.
Oh, really? Okay. And that's fine for people to, because it's expressing emotion. Male, female, I don't think there are caste and gender roles in there. This is not set in stone. One does this and the other. That's just not what it is. So similar to that identity, it's knowing you're not broken. When we don't have a job and all the other things, joblessness, some other kind of challenges or missteps or shortcomings, shortfalls, you're not broken, particularly because you're gonna move forward and incrementally put these pieces together. So we can say the same thing about regret. Right. Regret is common. Regret is a common companion to deep love. It's just going to come along when people are coming together, and then when one is no longer there. That's always going to be there. This idea, as we talked about earlier, of this, it doesn't mean carrying failure along with you. That is your constant identity. That is the only thing that you are. You're not broken. You're in a state of repair. Make sure you're doing that and incrementally moving along. And
Yep.
just this whole idea of regret as a common companion, you loved as fully as you possibly could, given the situation and dynamics and dysfunction or love at the very core, kind of unfettered version. And you're learning to live with that weight.
Yeah.
That's what is happening. You're not broken. Let me say it again, because we have a lot of gentlemen who are just feeling they can't be put back together again. They don't know what to do.
It's fine for you to feel that, right? And no judgment when you go through that. It's your experience. But I think the other piece, it is like, to that point, like, it's fine to go through it. It's fine to feel it. To Dave's point, you're not broken. Like, I didn't feel broken. I might have felt lost, right? I might have felt lost at certain points. I might not have known. I think we all may not know where to go. Where do I go from here? Right. Which is fine. But I think that it does, mean that you've experienced love, right? You've experienced connection with somebody who was critically important to what you believe life was. But life continues. Right. And I think that's an important part. Like, life has continued. Like, you have to continue going with it.
Yeah. You can't curl up in a ball somewhere and let it pass you by. And for those of us who have children, you certainly can't do that. And as we said, that's not modeling healthy living, moving forward for your children. And those who don't, same situation of what is life that was brought to you through the existence prior to your late wife.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly your late wife thought well of you in most situations where you're bringing something to that marriage.
Right.
And you're independent and fairly well-rounded, however we characterize ourselves as we come into marriages, the attractiveness that we're looking for somebody because of what they bring. So you are that full self to a great extent. And then you grow more, it is hoped, with the person you are with, then they die. But then you don't stop there. Life doesn't pause forever there. It's you move forward. All that you brought in, you're still that same person. And there's more to explore, especially those who don't have children, that it's the universe of friends that you have, the experiences that you have, that continues on because that's living, which we all need to do after loss.
Yeah. And I think they talk about, you always hear the phrase of living with regret, right? And, I think this comes down to the reality that, like, you don't have to solve the regret today.
Yeah.
But you do have to loosen its grip on you.
There it is.
Right? Like, it's not going to happen all at once. I don't think anybody, and neither David and I are saying, hey, we figured it out right out the gate. Right? It takes time. Right? Like, we all go through it. But you do have to loosen its grip on you so that you can find that way to get up, find those steps forward.
Yeah.
Figure out, how do you forgive yourself, right? How do you find forgiveness, but also find a way back to identify what happiness can look like.
That's right. And it only makes you stronger. It may stave off some dire medical conditions and all of that. Mental health too, we're talking about when we're saying dire conditions.
Yeah.
So I think it's important. So you want to hit those kind of the three themes we feel in this episode are truly important to Getting out of that regret loop. Yeah.
Yeah, the first one, again, to go back to where we started today, was love does not require lifelong punishment.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to beat yourself up forever. Then, find practical and grounded ways to interrupt regret and what it can do. And then the last one, through this whole process, you are not broken. You are just continuing to experience loss. You are continuing the process of grief.
Yeah.
But the reality is you got to get back up. You got to fight through the regret. You cannot let this hold you back from finding yourself through this whole process.
Yeah. Well, we thank you all for joining us for this second part of the regret loop.
Yeah.
Again, this mixtape, you don't want to hear those hits again in your head. They're not good tracks. Engineering.
There's only so many times you can listen to, Boys to Men. It's so hard to say goodbye. At some point you got to put on a different song.
That's right.
Something to bring up that spirit. So, thank you again for joining us on Getting Back Up, Finding Life After Death. Dave and I appreciate you guys joining us, and continue to hit us up on our socials. Continue to like, subscribe. Those are really important to our podcast, reaching more people. And we hope that you've enjoyed this show. And as usual, we hope you share this with somebody out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Getting Back Up, Finding Life After Death. If something in today's episode spoke to you, pass it on, because somebody out there needs to hear it.
For sure. We're on all the social mausoleums, so follow us on Instagram, Threads, TikTok. Mostly it will be in the form of Get Back Up Podcast.
And be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcast.
And remember, getting knocked down is part of life.
But getting back up, that's how we live.
We'll see y'all next time.